Hello everyone, this is Kevin Bass from thedietwars.com. I'm going to be doing a video about LDL cholesterol and in particular Dave Feldman's so-called low-carb cholesterol challenge and how that challenge was met and how his ideas were falsified. To do this, I'm going to use a screen capture software that will allow me to simultaneously browse the internet and read things off while I talk about them. You can see me, I think, in the lower left-hand corner, and we'll see how that will turn out. The low-carb cholesterol challenge by Dave Feldman was a challenge that he's been issuing for several years now. I think this post is from, I want to say 2018. The interesting thing is it's not just $3,000. It's now up to, I think, something like $25,000. It's a very high, amount. I think it was $25,000. And so this is an old representation of what the so-called cholesterol challenge was. But the basics ideas of the challenge are in this website. So I'm going to go read this off, essentially. Yeah, it shouldn't be long. I will summarize. He says, no one has provided a non-drug, non-gene study showing people with high HDL, low triglycerides, high LDL cholesterol exhibiting high rates of cardiovascular disease. And what I'm going to be talking about in this video is actually somebody has, and they did that last December, so 3 months ago. This was done by an epidemiologist, a highly trained specialist in this area, and she did it without taking the money because she wanted to not be influenced by design decisions that Dave might impose on her as a condition of doing and taking the challenge. She just wanted to meet the terms of the challenge itself without compromising the integrity of her work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what the challenge is. He says, the terms. I wanted to hold a contest for people to meet this challenge and set specific targets. After chatting with a friend of mine who is a lawyer, he pointed out there's a lot of legalese once you hold a contest or even use the word that can be very complex to comply with. So he suggests that I announce this as a fun challenge that may motivate me to reward participants. So let me say it like this. I'm very, very interested in studies that meet the criteria I outlined below. I have a budget of $3,000. I think it's $25,000 that I'll be drawing on via PayPal as I see fit for people who submit links to such studies in the comment section of this blog post. Obviously, first post on each specific study matters a lot to me. I'm thinking around $1,000 for a study that hits that criteria sounds pretty exciting, but I'm not officially saying one way or the other. You know what also sounds neat? Studies that show the opposite, like the ones mentioned below. So if people find studies that meet the below criteria with the exception of having low cardiovascular disease or coronary heart disease, I'm thinking of possibly something around $100 would be exciting. Once I'm out of that budget, I probably won't be giving away any more. But for legal purposes, everything I say above is all arbitrarily decided and in no way constitutes an explicit promise or commitment. Okay, lawyers, the criteria that I'm looking for, Dave Feldman's challenge, which has been met and he's been shown to be wrong. The criteria I'm looking for to set up specific targets, I'm going to use one of the studies that showcases the opposite result, high LDL, yet with low heart disease, the Framingham Offspring study. As per the challenge, I want to get a sample of people who aren't selected in or out for genetics or drugs that impact their lipid system, whatever a lipid system is. So here's the criteria, pure and simple, all of which must be met for a given group in this submitted study. HDL cholesterol above 50, triglycerides of 100 or below, LDL cholesterol of 130 or above, either high coronary heart disease or high cardiovascular disease. By normal and non-treated, I mean no stratifying by specific genetics, no stratifying by age, no stratifying by particular illness in advance of study, duh. In other words, just a broad group of people like the Framingham Offspring or the Jeppinson study. And here's some fine print that should be obvious, but just in case, the study needs to be published in a reputable journal. It has to be dated before this article was posted, of course. The study needs to have at least 400 participants that are stratified by this criteria. I prefer no unusual modeling or adjustments to alter the data too far from its original data set. This one goes by the honor system. If you have such a study and it's clearly warranted, I can give it a pass. Try to get the lights going. I can't get the lights going. Nope. Maybe I can't get the lights going. Do I still look okay? Let's see if I still look okay. I still look fine. So we're going to go in the dark. Yeah, so that's the basic idea. He says that it needs to already be published, but somebody actually conducted a legit analysis, a new novel analysis. So as a little bit of additional background for this, let's look at one of, do we have, let's look at, we can just switch it, good. Let's look at a very interesting post that Dave made. He says, a preview of my new slide for my upcoming talk this weekend at Low Carb Seattle. This is the lipid profile of 5 living centenarians from the NHANES dataset in 1999-2015. Note, these lipid profiles were taken 16 years before the follow-up that confirmed they were still alive. And what he's showing here is that these centenarians, people who lived to be more than 100 years old, all had LDL cholesterols, all of them, before they became centenarians. They all had LDL cholesterol of above 130. And all have low triglycerides. All of them have high HDL. And again, all LDL cholesterol above 130. So they have this lipid triad. Does it say low triglycerides, high HDL, and high LDL? Okay, fine. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's look at the thread that's shown that, yes, in fact, the more LDL cholesterol you have, even when you have the triad otherwise, the higher the mortality. You can't just cherry pick from NHANES. 5 people, this is literally 5 people from NHANES showing that LDL cholesterol, they all had high LDL cholesterol. And by the way, just to give a spoiler, the reason they have all have high LDL cholesterol is very simple. People who have higher LDL cholesterol as opposed to lower LDL cholesterol tend to be in more robust health. LDL cholesterol is a sign, is an indication of malnutrition, and that's been shown in many studies. So that's and so why does malnutrition have something to do with not living very long? Well, because people who are old, who are dying, and this happens in rodents, this happens in humans, it happens in all animals, people who are old and they're on the decline slowly but surely lose body mass and become frail and then die. The people who are not losing body mass, not becoming frail, those people are the ones who are robust, they're not malnourished. That's a sign, an indication that they're not on the decline. So high LDL cholesterol is an indication that people are not on the decline. Let's look at a formal analysis by Deirdre Tobias, Dee as the people who know her call her. Here's what Dee said. It's LDL results time, and this is on the basis of the study that she announced that she was going to conduct, a Twitter study, an analysis using modern epidemiological methods, using actually a very well-known data set that she had to request IRB access to, I believe, in order to do this analysis on Twitter. Here's where she actually introduces the study before she gives the results. Let's talk about the introduction of the study before we give the results. Cholesterol-lowering therapies like statins are a cornerstone of preventing cardiovascular disease since the 1990s. So with that, please join me in an epidemiologic adventure as we address an emerging alternative viewpoint that refutes the role of LDL, bad cholesterol, in cardiovascular disease. And we have a GIF by Dee where it's from Christmas Vacation. It says, "We're going to have the happiest Christmas." Indeed we are. A few weeks ago, social media was riled up over a controversial claim to forego lipid-lowering therapies for elevated serum LDL in patients where metabolic parameters were otherwise normal. One of their tweets, and she cleaves off. she cleaves off Dave's name, which is probably good. And she says, if a data scientist or know any of who are working with major longitudinal data sets, would you care to query persistent high LDL, high HDL, low triglycerides versus all-cause mortality? Okay, this approach to this hypothesis appears fairly straightforward at first. Among metabolically healthy patients is elevated LDL cholesterol associated with long-term cardiovascular incidence and mortality. But nothing is what it seems, and I hope we all learned some epi along the way. And this is a GIF that is from, I believe, it's not the original Home Alone movie. It might be the original. I can't remember, or it might be the second one, Home Alone 2. I can't even remember. Was it 3 of those? Anyway, so this is from, I think, at least the first or the second one, where the guy, I can't remember his name, he's stepping through the window and he gets his feet messed up on the ornaments from the Christmas tree that Kevin, which is a wonderful troublemaker's name, sets for him so that he hurts his feet as a trap. Anyway, she goes on on to the next tweet. She says, so I've decided to take on this side project completely independently. No funding or outside financial support, purely for the academic exercise. The proposal, analysis, and results will be 100% transparent. In fact, she uploaded them, and she uploaded the code. I just posted the analysis protocol. There is a form for anyone to submit suggestions or edits. Keep them clean, please. While I'm open to crowdsourcing this, I should also be honest. I'm incredibly stubborn about epi methods, but I guess you can try. So she has it uploaded to Google Drive, all of the methods, precisely what she's going to do before she even does it. She's pre-registering the trial. This is done better than most epidemiology already, and it's on Twitter. She says, I'll post any revisions to the protocol next week and take the analysis from there and update the results. I would also love to use this opportunity to walk through essential epi concepts as they come up, because as mentioned above, it is never as simple as it seems. Big thanks and appreciation right off the bat for the study PIs, Drs. Julie Buring and Eileen Lee at Brigham and Women's Hospital Division of Preventive Medicine, Boston, Massachusetts, for granting me to use the Women's Health Study data set for this purpose. She literally, I think, submitted an IRDP proposal in order to get this on Twitter. She says, that's it for now. Back to work. And then, of course, the usual suspects are chiming in, including David Diamond, who is not the most he's not the most let's just say his tweets are not the easiest to stomach on this LDL Twitter, as we might call it. But I think he's actually posting from December to the 22nd, around the time she actually posted the results. So I think he might be referring to that. So let's go actually look at the results themselves. And this is on, September 22nd, 5 a.m. She gets up bright and early to do her great and wonderful epi on Twitter. It's 5:50 a.m. And I wonder if she ran some of the analyses at the time, or maybe she was just generating figures as soon as she got up. In any case, her first tweet, she says, visit the above linked thread for some setup. And this thread here by Kevin Bass, Kevin in Bass. Remember to follow me on Twitter. Shameless plug. Gives further background into the motivation behind the hypothesis explored in this analysis. Does higher LDL cause increased risk of all-cause mortality? And I'm not going to go through the thread that I wrote. Suffice to say, I have a very poor opinion of Dave Feldman's work with David Ludwig, Nick Norwitz, Adrian Soto-Mota, and Tro Kalajian. And that was a thread about a paper breaking down some of the aspects of the paper and why some of what they write is not credible. But we're going to skip over that and just go on to DD's analysis. So she says, let me get this all out before questions. And remember that behind these survival curves are data points from actual women who died. And thank you so much to Drs. Buring and Lee, Paul Ridker and S. Mora, and countless others who worked hard to accrue these data. Next tweet. Does LDL cause death? It's not an easy hypothesis to test. LDL isn't an intervention. We can't give or withhold LDL like therapy or exposure. It's an intermediate of several upstream modifiable exposures. This matters conceptually. Bear with me. And so some more Christmas vacation meme. He says, nobody is leaving. Nobody's walking out on this fun old-fashioned family Christmas. No, no, no. And then the next thing in the thread is, nonetheless, evidence from every angle supports higher LDL blood levels as a causal intermediate of an upstream diet lifestyle with atherogenic heart disease, the number one cause of death. That is to say, evidence from every angle supports high blood LDL cholesterol, which is the result of upstream diet and lifestyle with, this is the cause, of atherogenic heart disease. Higher blood LDL is the cause of atherogenic heart disease. Higher blood LDL is the result of lifestyle and diet. The number one cause of death in the country, number two would be cancer. But doubts persist. Is LDL bad in the context of being otherwise metabolically healthy? Another way to frame this is smoking bad in the context of being otherwise metabolically healthy? And the answer, I will give it to you. The answer to that question, as we know from epidemiology, is that yes, if you are otherwise much healthier, the risks that you get from smoking will be reduced. If you are otherwise very unhealthy, the risks you get from smoking will be greatly enhanced. In the context of these multifactorial diseases, the more risk factors you have, the more your risk. And these risk factors are synergistic. So yes, if you look at smoking, if you're otherwise metabolically healthy, is your risk smaller from smoking? Yes. And the same goes, as we shall see, with LDL cholesterol. The more metabolically healthy, the lower the risk from high LDL cholesterol, but this risk does not go to zero by any means whatsoever. And so she says, let's take a look. The analysis was conducted in the Women's Health Study Cohort. Details for the cohort citations and full protocol for this analysis can be found here. I'm not going to really recap this, so let's take a look. We excluded those with cardiovascular disease, cancer, or diabetes. The final analytical sample is 20,000 women, 19,057 women with baseline blood samples and follow-up for all-cause mortality. Figure 1. She's literally having figure 1 in a Twitter thread. This is amazing. And you can see what she does here. If you want to see that, pause that, look at that. But I'm going to go moving on. She says, I posted table 1A a while back, or table 1 a while back, and think it is really important to understand the population we're working with. Check out that discussion here. Let's see if we can talk about this if it's not too long. Oh, it's a long discussion. Oh, gosh. Do we want to do this? All right, let's talk about table 1 briefly. Maybe we will. If you guys want to read that, you can. We're going to move on to the actual thread because it would take us forever to get through all of this. You know, she's thorough and outstanding, as you guys can see. So let's look at her next tweet in the thread. Okay, so baseline lipids, check. Long-term follow-up, 20 plus years for deaths, check. Censoring at statin use because the entire hypothesis is independent of these, check. Basic temperature check. Do we see the expected LDL mortality relationship in the overall study population? And again, she did all of this analysis prior she designed the study prior to actually looking at the results. She pre-registered the study. So as we see, by quintile, that is to say, if you separate the population into 20% segments, so 20% highest cholesterol, next 20%, next 20%, next 20%, and then the lowest 20% cholesterol levels, what do you see in each of these? And you see in the highest cholesterol level, the Q5, the pink here, you see the greatest mortality. So the survival probability declines precipitously. In fact, you see it's declining by 25 years to nearly 0.7, maybe you say 0.75. That's to say 25% of people die by about 23, 24 years, according to this graph. Whereas if you have the lowest LDL cholesterol levels, only about 10% of people are dying. So literally, it's like 2.5 times greater chance of dying, all causes, if you have the highest LDL cholesterol. That's interesting. And there's a dose-response relationship. So Q4, the next 20%, so say between 60 and 80% highest cholesterol in the population, LDL cholesterol in particular, you have a little bit less mortality. And then you look at Q3, a little bit less, and then Q1 and Q2 are pretty much indistinguishable in terms of their mortality. You can see it just from the lines themselves. This is a beautiful graph. In fact, I'm going to blow it up for you. Look at that. Okay, yes, reassuring, she says. Higher baseline LDL quintiles have worse all-cause mortality, but confounding. If all else was equal, comparing Clark with LDL of 80 and Eddie with LDL of 50, we attribute to LDL. But in fact, a lot can differ. As we can see, Eddie is very different from Clark in terms of his habits. He says, I'm excited about it too. Is this a whole nother thread? This is the table 1 thread that she was talking about. We're going to keep going. FYI, this is slow going because my kids woke up. Thank you for your patience. She's literally doing Twitter epidemiology while she's dealing with her kids at like 5 a.m. Okay, so let's skip to the main results. Let's look at the GIF. We didn't do anything wrong, and we still got the shaft. I think I remember this movie better, like really well. I think I've seen this movie like 20 times. Anyway, she says, let's skip to the main results, shall we? The overall population was stratified based on the HDL-C and triglycerides, where the HDL is above or equal to 50 and triglycerides below 100, set as the healthier subset. So these are the people with these characteristics. And don't forget, check out the table 1 to see how women differed across these strata. And here's table 1, just in case you guys were looking and interested in that. So here are the crude unadjusted survival curves for HDL above 50, LDL below 100, according to their baseline LDL-C quintiles. Trying to figure this out. No. So she means HDL above or equal to 50 and then triglycerides below 100, according to their LDL-C quintile. So that's a typo here in this post, which is fine. And then she stratifies again among these people, among these healthy subsets. So the first graph we saw was among everybody, but let's look at among the healthy subset. Yes, indeed, you do see an unadjusted survival curve. So this is not adjusted for confounders. You do indeed see for the highest quintile, the most mortality, even among these people, these women, and the lowest quintile, the lowest mortality. And in fact, if you look at the 20-year mark, we might even say the 19-year mark, we're down to almost a 20% rate of death about 19 years among the people in the highest quintile compared to, say, 90, like 5% or 7%. So 7% versus 20%. So again, it's like a 3 times higher chance of dying if you're in the higher quintile versus the lowest quintile. So that's incredible. And she says, all right, but survival curves are totally unadjusted. What about the confounders like age, smoking, BMI, et cetera? Now, it's really important to note that Dave asked Dave Feldman asked for the adjusted survival curves. He asked for the adjusted survival curves, but these are the unadjusted survival curves. And not only is she giving the unadjusted survival curves, just like he asked for, hopefully I said that right. I'm exhausted. It's almost bedtime. She gave the unadjusted survival curves, but she's going to go the next step and really test her hypothesis because she believes that adjusting is necessary to really test her hypothesis. So she's going beyond. She doesn't even need to. She's answered the challenge. She's shown that Dave Feldman's wrong, but she's going to do proper epidemiology, which requires adjustment. And he wants things unadjusted because he doesn't understand what proper epidemiology is. This researcher, Harvard professor, wants to show that if you properly adjust, she wants to test and see if we still get the same result. All right, let's look at it. Okay, cool. So metabolically healthy. After we adjusted for age, smoking, BMI, etc., we see maybe a 1.6 greater risk of death, all-cause mortality, after adjusting for these factors. And this is statistically significant in the highest quintile versus the lowest quintile. Great. So yes, again, falsified according to an adjusted model as well. And here's the main takeaway. So it's striking how consistent the relationship between LDL and all-cause mortality is. Women with higher baseline LDL were more likely to die during follow-up, regardless of their HDL or triglycerides. It really didn't matter if they're metabolically healthy or not. They still were more likely to die if they're in the highest quintile of LDL cholesterol. So then she says, okay, but maybe HDL above 50 and triglycerides below 100 isn't strict enough metabolically healthy. What if we further restrict a BMI below 25, no hypertension, HbA1c to below 6.5, and non-smoker? And again, she shows the same thing as she saw earlier. Okay, I came into this project genuinely unattached to any outcome. That these data are very clear. Women with higher LDL, regardless of so many of other metabolic traits and factors, were more likely to die during follow-up. And she says, she has a gift, says, tis the season to be merry, indeed. 18, I just dumped all the SAS code, outputs, figures, tables into this folder for viewing. If you catch a typo or error, please let me know. Let's just look at this to see what she did. Holy shit. Holy shit. She did all this for you guys. She did all this for you guys, and this is why I'm here. Holy shit. She did all this for you guys. This is why I'm here, to make this video, to document this. I don't know how good the video is, but we're making this video. We're going to document this. It's LDL results time. And I'm going to make sure that the world knows about this as much as I can make sure this is the case, because she did fine work, very intensive work, and the world needs to know. So, okay, at the end of the thread, wait, let's see. Okay. Oh no, let's do the GIF. Okay, so take a look around you, Ellen. We're all at the threshold of hell. We're at the threshold of hell. Great. And the final, I think this is from this. This is I don't know which one this is. This might be the Christmas vacation. It's been such a long time. For us, might be vacation itself. But she says, end of thread. So you can all take it from here. In the end, am I surprised by these findings? If I woke up tomorrow with my head under the carpet, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now. And yeah, ugh. It's fine. So we have a bunch of things, a bunch of comments that are okay. But let's read one that I thought was good. It is a great addition to the literature by Kevin Kladd. Want to highlight that we already knew from various transgenic mice and human genetic syndromes variants that increase in LDL is pathogenic, and that's found across the metabolic health spectrum. Moderating factors exist for sure too, but nothing oblates LDL's role. Nothing. Let's see. And then Danielle says, amazing work, clap or whatever. LDL, low LDL for the win. And of course, everybody's saying this is great. All right, cool. So that's the thread. That is the debunking of Dave Feldman's so-called low-carb cholesterol challenge. He is wrong. And, you know, being on a low-carb diet and having super high LDL cholesterol, even if you have low triglycerides and high HDL cholesterol, even if you're healthy in every single other respect, you're still going to be at much higher risk of cardiovascular disease and of death from all causes. And there's no question that this is the case. It's sort of almost academic. It's not even academic. It's not even academic. It's absurd to really be discussing this because it's just what we've known for a long time. So one thing I want to go to and So I'm laughing at my own joke. So David Diamond says, Deirdre for group A, optimal HDL triglycerides, the Q5 confidence interval overlaps with 1.0, rendering it non-significant, red arrow. This finding supports the hypothesis that LDL-C influence on mortality is neutralized by optimal HDL triglycerides. No. And she says, sorry, was this question answered already? Also, looks like an error on the upper bound next to the arrow somehow missing. We'll update that. And then some other people say some stuff like Nick says, even if not significant, it would show that the influence is neutralized. The data literally don't show that. And then David says, the purpose of constructing adjusted HR models and observational studies is to identify factors that may independently influence an outcome, LDL-C and mortality. When the confidence interval touches 1.0, does not support the hypothesis. The hypothesis is that when the confidence interval touches 1.0, it does not support the hypothesis that that high LDL-C, it's getting late, increases mortality. And then I said, okay, but is it 1.0 because Deirdre Tobias rounded up or because she rounded down? We only know the answer if we know which way she rounded. And this is me just poking fun at things because it's like, well, okay, yeah, maybe if it's like borderline statistically significant, yeah, we can just like throw it out. But if she rounded the other direction, then we need to keep it. It's like, it's kind of silly. It's like, it's arbitrary, essentially. Yeah, you can make a cutoff at, the confidence interval 0.05, but it's arbitrary because if it comes down to that, then we should really be asking the question of like, okay, what's the reality? Is it or is it not? But that quite aside, then I asked Dee Dee this question and she said, so I said, hi, LDL skeptic, it's 1.002 with P below 0.05. It's in the output file. Can you please officially change your handle to LDL believer as there is now evidence in favor of the hypothesis? So he loved it. He loved this analysis whenever it showed that the confidence interval touched 1.0. But now that I have pointed out that the confidence interval does not touch 1.0, he's not going to suddenly become a believer and take the data seriously. It's a fun thing. It's a little bit, not a little bit, but it's a completely, he only takes the data and the evidence that supports his beliefs and he just kind of ignores everything else. So we did it. That is the video, my 30-minute video. I was about to fall asleep for half the time here, but we got through it. And hopefully now this puts Dee Dee's excellent analysis, the debunking of Dave Feldman, out and about on the internet. Please share this. Click subscribe, like, comment, give me hate mail, do whatever you need to do to get whatever you need to get off your chest.
I can be found on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Kevin in Bass. That's 2 N's because my middle initial is an N. So Kevin in Bass. On those different platforms, of course, YouTube as well. So Deirdre, Dee can be found on Twitter, at least at Deirdre Tobias. That's D-E-I, Deirdre, D-E-I-D-R-E_TOBIAS. That's DEIRDRE_TOBIAS on Twitter. And please follow her because she is an excellent mind who can perhaps change your opinion and change your view about nutritional epidemiology and the rigor with which she approaches it. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you got something out of this. Again, click subscribe, share it all over the internet. Thanks for watching.